Good morning. Today I want to discuss some very touchy issue. Kenya has been placed on the dirty money list, or as people call it, the gray money list. This is a very negative blemish on the country at large. This has been done by the organization, a global organization called the Financial Action Task Force. In other words, FAFT. So what is FAFT? So FAFT, or let me say Financial Action Task Force, is an intergovernmental organization that was established in 1989. The reason why it was established was to combat money laundering and terroristic financing on a global scale. So FAFT sets international standards and promotes effective implementation of legal, regulatory, and operational measures. And this is done to prevent money laundering and financing of terrorism. Now, for a country like Kenya to be placed on that organization, it means they have not met the standards to curb money laundering and financing of terrorism. So in the past 2 years, FAFT has called a group of foreign regulators and the markets to take a measured approach. It added explicitity to its grey listing statement, and that does not call for enhanced due diligence measures against grey listed countries, but it's also cautioned against termination of business relationships. It's not clear that this has already taken effect. But in recent study, it has come to know that countries who have a negative approach or appear on the grey list typically have a negative economic impact on these countries. Correlations point to a negative impact on the GDP. It has a negative impact on the growth rates. And worryingly enough, development aid appears to be greatly affected. Some of the negative impact may lag development. And you can see Uganda was on the list, and you can see what it did to that economy. For instance, it takes some time to see the positive benefits of being out of the list. So every country must avoid to be on the list. So what does Kenya need to do now? So since its 2022 mutual evaluation report, Kenya has been working to improve its compliance levels. Now it must implement the agreed action plan to address the remaining strategic deficiencies. Actions include completing a national terrorist financing risk assessment and sharing the results with the public and the private sector stakeholders. Kenya is also committed to improve its risk-based supervision of regulated entities, including licensing and supervision of virtual assets, including cryptocurrency, because as we know, people use crypto for services. Other actions may include enhancing risk-based compliance and reporting of suspicious transactions to the Financial Reporting Center. Of course, increasing the money laundering and terrorist financing prosecution to match the country's risk. So if your risk is at 9, of course, your prosecutions have to be at 9. Your risk cannot be at 9 and your prosecution is at level 1. So they also have to revise the framework of the regulation of non-profit organizations and their oversight to ensure that mitigating measures are risk-based and do not disrupt or discourage legitimate non-profit organization activities. So, as you know, Uganda spent 4 years on this grey list. Given that, Kenya will need to achieve a time frame of 3 to 4 years to be on that list. Realistically, it's a long time. So the government has to up their game, report any activities that do not match regular activities. So what does grey listing matter to Africa? I mean, we are Africans. Why does it matter? It's a European organization. So grey listing poses a challenge for sub-Saharan Africa. The region accounts for 12 of the 21 grey listed countries. So the listed countries, of course, include Nigeria and South Africa. And the economic impact of this level of simultaneous grey listing on the development of the region as a whole gives some serious concerns. If Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa are on the list, and these are some of the leading economies in Africa, and then now business is going to be affected, that is a big impact on Africa. The reason why countries from this region have not met the task force standards is really they don't have sufficient level of political commitment to fight money laundering. The governments are not 100% committed. The governments are not 100% committed in fighting corruption, and the governments are not 100% committed in fighting terrorist financing. So given this negative impact of crime and negative impact of failure to implement the crime combating standards, then the regions are affected even politically. So Kenya and the broader Africa and the placement in the grey list by the Financial Action Task Force, FAFT. This designation carries significant implication to Kenya's economy. It also has a serious implication on Kenya's reputation in the global financing community. And of course, it also affects Kenya's ability to combat financial crimes effectively. So it means Kenya to be placed in this grey list. Of course, FAFT, compromising of economically powerful countries who set the standards to safeguard integrity of international financial systems. Now, it's a negative thing. The good thing is Kenya and of course Namibia and Uganda are not members of FAFT, so they don't make these decisions, but they are members of the Eastern and Southern African Anti-Money Laundering Group, an association regional body for Africa. So all member countries undergo regular evaluation of their compliance with the AML and CFT standards. So the consequences of being on the grey list, as I made before, are profound. Foreign regulators, including the EU and the UK, may impose enhanced due diligence measures on business and individuals linked to these grey listed countries. Of course, these measures will slow down business transactions, they will increase costs, and may even jeopardize deals and relationships. So despite calls for a measured approach from the FAFT, grey listing countries to have a negative economic impact is still there. Once you're listed, it affects you. So Kenya must now take decisive action to address the remaining strategic deficiencies outlined in its 2022 Mutual Evaluation Report. This includes completing a national terrorist financing risk assessment, enhancing risk-based compliance, and reporting of suspicious transactions. And of course, now there has to be, like I said, increased prosecutions for money laundering and terroristic financing, and revising regulations for non-profit organizations. So the situation demands introspect. Are African countries demonstrating sufficient political commitment to combat money laundering? Are they going to up the game to combat corruption? Are African countries going to up the game to combat terroristic financing? Can the region afford political complacency given the negative impact of financial crimes on development? So as FAFT begins another round of evaluations coming soon, the listed countries must also ensure robust measures are in place to combat financial crimes effectively. Doing so serves a national interest and prevents future relisting, because once you're on the list, you don't want to go back on that list. So Kenya's placement on this grey list is a wake-up call for the entire Africa. It's time to demonstrate unwavering commitment to combat financial crimes, safeguard our economies, and uphold international standards of transparency and accountability. Thank you.